Events of this sort are a commonplace happening in Malaya, where no road is safe from terrorist ambush, but where an alerted patrol, such as these Gurkhas, can give as good as they take. Sudden and unexpected death lurks behind every leaf. The civilian can go about his ordinary business, but only if safeguarded against surprise attack. Malaya's jungle gives protective cover to an unseen enemy who is not prepared to stand and fight, only to murder and run. Massed guns and entrenched positions are valueless. Two terrorists dead and one captured before they can melt away into the jungle's vast cover is counted a good day's work.
Why does it happen? In Southeast Asia, the Malayan scene has been partially overshadowed by more spectacular events in Korea. The problem is similar, a fight against militant communism. But Malaya remains Britain's own battlefield. To claim the answer at first hand, I flew to Singapore by the Comet, and within 24 hours of taking off from London, the scene began to unfold. A short drive from the airport brought me into the city of Singapore, the crossroads of the East. Here I lunched with Malcolm MacDonald, Commissioner General for Southeast Asia. It was in this city, granted its royal charter in 1951, that the seeds of the present emergency were sown as far back as 1928, when the Malayan Communist Party was formed among the immigrant Chinese. It achieved little success, but was never entirely disbanded. When, in 1941, the Japanese army overran Malaya, the Chinese communists took to the jungle and recruited a guerrilla force that became known as the People's Anti-Japanese Army. Arms, ammunition, food, medical stores, and men expert in jungle warfare were parachuted to this force, and it served its purpose of harassing the Japanese. In 1945, the Japanese surrendered, and the British returned to Malaya. It was a time for rejoicing. The anti-Japanese army marched in triumph in Malaya's own victory procession. They were confident that the time had come for them to take over the rule of the country, but this was not to be. A further period of unrest followed. Strikes, riots, civil action to disrupt the country in an attempt to force their rule upon it. In 1948, these men returned to the jungle, taking with them their Union funds, to the stores of wartime arms built up secretly against such a day as this. The reborn force was renamed the People's Anti-British Army. The reign of terror commenced in June. Within a few days, the lives and possessions of all peaceable Malays, Chinese, Indians, and Europeans were in danger from these marauding ruffians, bent on the dislocation of Malaya's economy. Their attacks were countered by the declaration of a state of emergency that outlawed every single terrorist. But it is not from the colony of Singapore that the emergency is administered. I took to the air again, this time for Kuala Lumpur. It gave me my first real look at Malaya. Its backbone of densely overgrown mountains. Its tin, which has been mined and smelted for centuries, and now provides 1/3 of the world's supply. It was these mines that attracted most of the immigrant Chinese labor in the late 19th century. And the Chinese now almost equal the Malaysians in total number, and have infiltrated into the entire economic structure of the Federation. Its ports, like Singapore and Sweden, deep harbors able to accommodate the biggest freighters. But the origin of the Malay race is shrouded in uncertainties. It has something of the Indian, the Thai, and the Chinese. The Malay kingdom existed in the 15th century. It was in turn ruled by the Portuguese in the 16th century and by the Dutch in the 17th. In the late 18th century, the British, who had settled in the island of Singapore, were invited into the Federation and have remained ever since. The Malays are, by tradition and inclination, a gentle, peace-loving people, preferring contentment to wealth. It's paddy fields, which provide a staple rice diet for all the peoples of Malaya. It's rubber, first planted in the late 19th century from seedlings provided by Kew Gardens, in ground reclaimed from the jungle, and that now provides the world with almost half the rubber it uses. And above all, it's jungle that covers 4/5 of the land and provides an impenetrable canopy that now conceals a terrorism that stalks by day and night and seeks to wreck the economic structure of this rich and peaceable country. Kuala Lumpur, the capital town and seat of government of the Federation of Malaya, the headquarters of the men who are striving to drive the terrorists out of the jungle that reaches to within a few miles of the city's boundaries. I was driven to King's House, the residence of General Sir Gerald Templar, to whom the government of Malaya looks for guidance and control. He was sworn in at a typical and colourful ceremony in February 1952. And as High Commissioner, steers the economic life of the country. He presides over the Federal Legislative Council, representing all the varied communities and interests in which the 9 Malay states and the 2 British settlements, Malacca and Penang, take part. As Director of Operations, General Templar carries out a planned and successful campaign against the terrorists. He tours the countryside, often in company with Lady Templar, encouraging and advising, seeing for himself. It was with General Templar's permission that I was able to get out into the country to see for myself how the battle against terrorism is waged. The success of this battle is measured by the known lack of up-to-date arms and ammunition, and the shortage of food from which the enemy suffers. Their efficiency is impaired. No army can fight on an empty stomach or without effective arms. Terrorist attacks are, nowadays, mostly a matter of filling empty bellies. Down there, beneath that impenetrable canopy, lies the enemy. Ya, dah tinggi ni. That is the method. Intimidate a few men into parting with their carefully husbanded store of rice, carry 2 or 3 to the kampong as hostages against an immediate alarm, and melt away into the jungle before the alarm could be raised.
Tuan-tuan, saya panggil tuan-tuan beberapa pagi ini, iaitu Encik Ali dan Encik Baki sudah berjumpa penjahat di ladangnya dekat tepi hutan sana. Saya sangat berduka cita memikirkan kerana penjahat ataupun tikus hutan hendaklah bekal untuk menjaga keselamatan kawasan kita.
Nowadays, the reaction of the villagers to these raids is very different from the results expected by the terrorists. No longer do they remain passive, for they know that help is never very far away.
Datuk, saya patut orang tua bila-bila setuju mengikut perkataan Datuk.
Biar putih gelang, jangan putih mata. Saya akan tubuhkan satu.
I'm a police officer. The Kanguru, or headman, has stirred his people to a sense of their responsibility. And we, the police, are to be asked to form a guard to protect his kampong against future attack. This we will do. But more often we rely on information provided by our plainclothes agents, the eyes and ears of our force. The officer superintendent police circle receives a call from one of these men. They are to meet that evening at the superintendent's bungalow.
Now, Eric, this is C27, an agent who just come in. I won't go into details how he's got this information, but it's good. He got you your last skill.
Yes.
He's got to go back and make a very important contact. So I'll run through very briefly what he has to say written present here.
Yes.
Have you got the banking map with you?
Yes.
Excellent. Oh, here's a drink. Your drink, Eric. All right, some guys, boy, very big hand. Now, very roughly and quickly, this is Bangi Power.
Yes.
That's the Bangi Road.
Yes.
This is the track used by the bandits to come to the smokehouse
Yes.
on which they collected food. They do not use packs. Therefore, he assumes that the camp is somewhere on this hill feature near the forest reserve, which I think he's probably right.
Saya lagi ada satu orang menyanyi tanah.
He wants to go back. He's got to ride on the chance. So if we let him go now.
Yes.
Right, bye now. Bye.
No time is lost in acting upon the information. In the first light of dawn, a standby military patrol is alerted and ordered out to search for the suspect camp. Technically, the army acts only in support of the police. Malaya still remains under a state of emergency. Martial law has never been resorted to. Consequently, the maintenance of internal security stays a civil responsibility, administered by the greatly expanded police force.
Robin, good. We just got some first-class information just come in. Informer tells us that 2 or 3 CTs are coming regularly to a smokehouse on that rubber estate there. It's just off the 23rd mile on the Bangi Road. None of them got any packs, so it seems very likely their camp is not so far in on the jungle on which their estate borders.
Yes, sir.
So take your platoon out, divide into 2 sections, one section taking that area around there, another section taking that area there, around that river valley. D-bus on the road, take the estate tracks out.
Yes, I know this.
Armed and uniformed terrorists, rifles or shotguns.
I see.
Now that sounds good information. I want to go straight out after it.
Right, sure, I think yes. But I'll take one section myself, Sergeant will take the other.
Right?
Excellent.
Good. Good luck.
Thank you.
jungle terrorist camp is a mere matter of 10 miles or so from the roadway, Sergeant Aldrich's patrol must fight its way through an evergreen, trackless jungle as old as time. 100 feet above them stretches a dense ceiling of foliage that darkens their progress. From the high branches hang heavy festoons of creeper and vine that tangle feet and body. At 25 yards, a man is invisible to friend or foe, and trigger fingers press lightly on the guns, ready for the alarm that will speed a fan of bullets into the darkness from which answering fire is likely to come. One sharp burst from either side can spell defeat or victory, as the jungle counts such things in the loss of single lives. Each man is on his own, relying for survival upon the instincts that the jungle itself has brought to a fine pitch. It is hot and humid, and perfect physical and mental fitness is demanded to withstand conditions like this.
In the early days of the emergency, a sharp thorn in the side of the police were numerous squatters' settlements that had sprung up on the edge of the jungle during the Japanese occupation. A few still remain, populated almost entirely by Chinese, refugees from their original homes. These settlements form a perfect go-between for the terrorists. Here, through fear or sympathy, the terrorists can expect and get cooperation.
Lúc bạn đi cái hú à, hay mà thì là cả thầy cả càng hả, lúc bạn có đi cái có mày mày mẫu vào, có tiểu hoa thì đi có tiểu tụi nó thầy có tiểu nghe cái hú à, lúc bạn chúng ta về các hàng mày này của cả là có đi cái tôi thì cần một có đi tay một để họ có đi cái tôi thì
We've got through about 3 miles of jungle today. Time to make camp. I'm the sergeant in charge of the patrol. You wouldn't know if you look at me. None of us wears our stripes on a job like this. Too much of a target. First job, post sentries. Don't matter if you stop for 2 minutes or a whole night. Sentries first. We get on with the job. Quietly, no fuss. Collect up the water bottles for refilling. Radio our position to HQ. These two have got the job of filling the bottles. Takes them a bit away from the camp, so they've got to be careful.
Present opposition, and it is a Jules here. X-ray, a yoke of feet of road for a full stop.
I'll get on with the supper. All out of tins. Good assortment to suit all races. Bloody. She's taking a chance. I won't do that herself. Serves him right, might have been a bandit. Meantime, the others, Borneo tracker and all, start knocking up the bashers, as we call them. Lean-tos to give us a bit of cover if it rains in the night. Last job, supper. It's good tack and it goes down well. And it helps to get some hot food inside you before you settle down. You'd hardly call it sleep with this racket in your eardrums. Unless you happen to be a Borneo tracker. It's rest, true enough, but proper sleep's out of the question. Sentry girl is under eerie business. Her nerves are on the jump all the time. This one's all right, but then his girl's name been Molly. Sorry you've been trouble, Cock. Dawn, and it's been a quiet night. Well, what we call quiet. First job, breakfast. Stand up to it. Tastes just as good that way. Saves time. Then, break up the bashers. We're not like Queen Elizabeth I. We don't want no one to know that we slept here last night. And it won't take the jungle long to cover up our traces. The old man from Borneo takes a couple of secs more than we do to get ready. But blimey, I wish my girl could put up her hair in the time it takes him.
During the night, we received information about another camp.
Yes, it was one small point. Yesterday, over the Almetri estate, staff of the DSS had actually been through the area, something with a scout round. Reports from terrorists who seemed to be coming out practically along the DSS tracks. It's about the second time they've done that in about the last 2.5 months or so.
It's not so deep into the jungle as the one to which the army is hacking its way. And this time, one of our own Malay patrols is available. The new camp lies inside our police circle. So, constantly on the alert, the patrol makes its ways through secondary jungle. Land that has at some time been reclaimed from primary jungle, but is now derelict and being rapidly overgrown. Soon it will be as dense as it ever was. The route takes the patrol through a big logging camp, another target for the terrorists. If they can drive the workers away, it doesn't take the jungle long to sweep in and close the camp for good. And derelict country is perfect prey for fast-growing vegetation. In a few remote camps, the terrorists have succeeded. But even so, Malaya's timber export has hardly been affected. Fortunately, swamp conditions are not often encountered, and the patrol is lucky that this one can be navigated by light, flat-bottom canoes paddled by the inhabitants of this Sakai village. More primitive than most villages, it is the place from which our information has come. They welcome the patrol. Slowly but surely, the whole population is beginning to understand and appreciate the length and strength of the protective arm that encircles them. As this feeling of security grows, so do the efforts of the people to protect themselves. Those that reject the help and prefer to cooperate with the terrorists soon learn that the encircling arm is as quick to punish as it is to protect. Our agents, too, are quick to gather information about collaborationists, and the law against the transgressor is widely known. To supply food to the terrorist is a civil offence, specified under the laws of the emergency and punishable by imprisonment of the individual or denial of collective amenities. To supply arms to the enemy or to carry arms without a permit is an offence punishable by death by hanging.
That's it! That's it!
These squatters are already suspect. It is known that these two are collaborators. Their punishment after trial will be swift and sure.
Right, well, if we give them 2 days, pull down their stuff, and I'll provide transport to take them away. You'll give the escort, will you? Yes, I'll provide the escort. That's grand. I think you ought to tell them exactly why you're resettling them. Oh, yes, of course.
First, the squatters are assembled so that the district officer can address them through the interpretation of the Chinese resettlement officer.
Are you going to have them searched, Bill? Yes, I'll search them now. Sergeant! Bawa semua perempuan sana dan periksa. Periksa semua orang sini. Lekas! Lekas!
This collaboration has to be stopped and stopped quickly. Each source of supply to the enemy is a menace to the security of the country and to the well-being of the majority of the population. And whether it is an isolated settlement like this or a big established village, the preventative measures taken by the police are the same. The women are isolated and searched by Malay women police. No one is omitted. The food they supply to the terrorists is probably their own, but the guns and ammunition are often smuggled to them to pass on from the sea.
Periksa badan sama orang, periksa badan. Barangkali ada sangat, barangkali jaga dia. Kemudian, kapal itu.
This is how the Royal Malayan Navy helps in the suppression of the terrorists.
Baiklah, periksa dalam. Lekas, lekas, periksa dalam.
If their supply lines can be cut and kept cut, they cannot exist in the wilderness of the jungle. That they are denied food and firearms is a reason why the rate of surrender of enemy personnel is stepping up. Now, more than one a day is the rate, whereas until a few months back it was as low as 2 a week.
Right, Jimmy. Will you tell them, first of all, that I know perfectly well that they are supplying food, ammunition and information to the communist terrorists.
各位，今日政府看到一啲來啊，即係從前一啲嘅壞嘅行為，也警察部面拍一啲同埋匪徒要合作，後來要換頓良知同埋強制本地了。
And it's got to stop.
匪徒你就聽咗愛情啦。
And the only way we can stop it is to move all these people into one of the new resettlement areas.
聽咗愛有啲人認真啊，村人哋辦到聽日戰村。
So I give them 2 days now in which to pack up their belongings, pull their houses down, by which time I'll have transport ready to take them away.
後來半年前2月插一戶進入加上數碼偏偏，
Do they understand that?
明白冇？
Right, that's fine.
Well, there it is. We must move them to something new. What do they in the country gain? At first, the people didn't like the new villages. They resent the destruction of their old hovels and the violence of the change that we district officers have to order. These villages now represent a new way of life in Malaya, even from pre-war days. They have been built for the benefit of a people who had lost their roots in the country of their adoption. They can be happy and industrious in the way they like to be. Above all, they gain security for their families. They move about freely, but are protected from terrorist attacks. Their personal wants can be purchased, and they can organize their own farms and sell the produce. They can live and enjoy their lives in the way they choose, without fear of disturbance or intimidation. But, besides the material gains, like good houses, jobs, their communal markets and farms, bring under supervision a section of the population that otherwise would remain fruitful material to the terrorists. In these new villages, they cannot become contaminated by the ideologies the terrorists represent, who furthermore are denied yet another source of supply. Into the villages we introduce modern amenities, clinics, where medical treatment is freely provided. Sports, such as this match between Chinese and British Army teams. The ever-constant mahjong, the delight of the old men, and to the amusement of the young. Relaxation and entertainment between working hours. And above all, education.
This chair is made of wood. This is the chair. This is the picture. I am fighting. This is my chair. Table. This is the table. This is the picture.
We're getting near our objective, but we've got to take great care against surprise. There's nowhere to go. They can't be far away, so we've got to be quick. It's not the camp we're heading for, that's certain. They're funny people, these terrorists, always making mistakes. Perhaps they feel they're safe in the jungle. Their papers give us the information that even the police informers can't get.
Found the camp, a figure 1 hour old, figure 5 of ashes, a full stop. Documents have been found, full stop. Slacks are found running due east, full stop. Intentions to follow up, full stop, over.
We don't burn their bashers down. The smoke and flame would give us away. And from now on, Horsham's our middle name. But officer, what's that? Oh, they've given themselves away again. 2 jungle rules they've broken. Never leave your basher standing when you leave camp, and always be careful you don't leave your monocle on a bush. Well, we know they aren't far away, but it's my guess they don't know we're just behind. But I'm not taking any chances. We've come a long way today. We're tired. A night's rest before we catch up with them, that's what's needed. So, sentries on the alert. We get what sleep the jungle will let us.
My husband is the manager of a rubber plantation, and our bungalow is set in a tropical paradise where there's no compensation for the isolation and loneliness of the life we live.
Bye-bye, darling.
Bye, dear.
But manlike, he finds it the sort of life he wouldn't exchange for any other. As he drives away in the first light of day, it's perhaps only I who know how deeply he walks each day in the shadow of death. I can't deny that it's fascinating, colourful work, and as the tappers go out to their tasks in the early morning, so my husband arrives at the factory to start his daily ride. Then I can only wait for sundown and his return home, I pray unharmed, to renew for a few hours the love and companionship that's our life together. The estate he manages is large and runs parallel with the jungle. As he tells me, rubber is a material which the modern world can't do without, and Malaya grows nearly 1 million tons of it each year. The factory is up to date and prepares crepe rubber ready for world export. He doesn't leave the factory until the tappers return with the first of the day's collection. I love the sound of the swinging pails and the sight of the swaying bodies rhythmically keeping time to the heavy, balanced loads. He's been warned that terrorists have been sighted in the district, but his guards have reported no infiltration into the estate. That doesn't mean that he can relax his vigilance, for they may cross the boundary at any time, day or night, to hack and destroy the trees. Before he leaves the factory, he will oversee the weighing and checking of the latex, raw, untreated liquid rubber. It's the source of this latex that the bandits attack. It takes no more than a dozen strokes of their parangs to ruin the trees from which it flows. No wonder we find them weeping their white tears of anguish. I see them, I sometimes fear that one day my tears may flow as freely. At noon, I know that my husband will leave the factory to inspect the rest of the estate. It's then, as the real peril begins, that I pray he may safely return to me this night.
But our net is drawing tighter around this marauding band. The patrol of Malay policemen find the reported camp. It is already abandoned. No matter. It helps us to pinpoint the centres from which the terrorist raids have taken place. A pattern of their plan begins to emerge. The corporal in charge gives orders for the destruction of the camp. There is no point in leaving it for others to use. But they must be quick to return to headquarters, as there may be yet another search to be undertaken. The evidence of terrorist occupation of the camp is hardly of military importance, except as another pointer that food supplies are so scarce that the feeding of one extra mouth justifies the abandonment of new life.
Well, you better take charge of this, honey. It's my job here. I'll deny it. I think this is a case for the social welfare instead of the Supreme Court. That's right, yes.
map, I make it that we're not more than a quarter of a mile from the spot where they reckon these chaps have camped. They might have spotted us already. We've got a fight on our hands any minute now, so we don't wait. Get it over quick if we can catch them on the op. This patrol has accomplished its task. 2 dead and 1 captured. Some guns too. Casualties? 1 man wounded, not seriously. They've done a good day's work. They radio the result back to headquarters. Now comes the task of the return journey. Besides the captured man, their leader, who will go on trial for his life, the patrol must bring back the bodies of the dead. They have to be identified. Their names struck off the lists of wanted men and their dossiers closed by a record of the crime that has killed them. Before the patrol leave, they exercise the prerogative of the victor. A flag for the barrack-room wall, a cap to bring home to mum, and a sucking pig for supper. Last of all, destruction of the camp from which so much murder and devastation has sprung. It is blotted out for the evil thing it is.
Malaya's rich earth holds yet another prize, tin. As the manager of this mine, the police have warned me that before the remnants of this band of terrorists retreat into the jungle, they are likely to test my defenses. They can never destroy the tin as they do the rubber, so they practice intimidation. Try to kill a few of my Chinese workers, and the rest will stay away from the mine, afraid of the sniper's bullet that may thud into their unsuspecting bodies at any moment. If they succeed, the mine will remain idle until confidence is restored. Then the productivity of a big and useful industry would decline. But they reckon without our well-trained home guard, constantly on the lookout for attacks of this sort. Although they managed to get home with the first bullet from the cover of the jungle, they unconsciously help us, for no terrorist will ever break cover if there is the slightest risk of danger to himself. And to follow up, the police are never far away. A telephone or radio call brings one of the constantly alerted patrols to the scene of action in double quick time.
We're going to follow up. This band is defeated. They can only retire until another headquarters is established and a new spurt of terrorism organised.
Yeah. We killed 4 of them. Yes, we killed 4 of them. I believe there's 8 altogether. I've got 1 home guard wounded, 2 of my chaps wounded, and we're following up now. Yeah, Tim, I'll keep you informed. Yeah, bye.
Meantime, at police headquarters, the army patrol brings in their prisoner, their booty, and the bodies. Immediately, the leader is taken away for his interrogation. Surrendered enemy personnel come forward to identify the bodies. These men, and some women, have surrendered as a result of the propaganda campaign now waged in and over the jungle, by a realization of their increasingly desperate situation, or by fear of the consequences of capture.
It was at this point that I was able to again pick up the threads of this action and to study the results. What had it achieved? First, the struggle for food, the tragic deaths of some British and Malayan personnel, the destruction of some rubber trees. To balance, a few terrorists killed, 2 captured, 3 wretched squatters on trial for their lives, the crew of a junk safely in jail, a list of firearms seized.
Revolver and 36 grenade. Revolver and 36 grenade.
How's it going? Back in. What is his reaction here? I will record his statement now. This man used me for animal. Tell him that. That you're not obliged to say anything.
Of course he knows these people are his friends. He doesn't know. Now look, you can tell him that he's not going to help us, and we're not going to help him, and it's going to go against him at the trial. If he doesn't help us, then he takes the consequences.
如果係你可以幫我哋嘅忙，你肯幫我哋嘅忙咧，我哋就幫你忙。唔係以後在法庭上咧，我哋就冇辦法幫你忙。到件事你自作自受。就你點就點啊！你做anything you like 啫。
You don't get it help.
你唔肯幫我哋嘅忙，唔肯。
Accused understands the charge.
The accuser is committed to stand his trial before the High Court at Kuala Lumpur. And meanwhile, he is remanded in custody in Kudu prison pending his trial.
One terrorist is about to learn the sharp lesson of the law he has transgressed. He is not a soldier, he is a criminal. But to bring him to trial, just one of some 4,000 terrorists known to exist in the jungle, harassing, intimidating, murdering, what is the cost? A large force of home guards, plantation guards, special constables, a greatly expanded police force, capable of tracking terrorists to the furthest corners of the jungle, a British army to back them and help them to carry out their arduous and dangerous tasks, soldiers from the outposts of the empire, and for good measure, a well-equipped naval force to stop smuggling from the sea, an air force to strike the enemy in haunts that are difficult for the patrols to reach, and to keep the patrols active for long periods of deep jungle penetration, a supply service for food and medical stores, the delivery of that best of all tonics in moments of stress, the letter from home, and for the unfortunate wounded man, an air ambulance service capable of landing in a tiny jungle clearing to transport the emergency case back to base. There, a modern hospital service awaits him. All this tying down men and money that could be more usefully employed. That is the measure of success the communist scores. But in his defeat, the Federation continues upon a planned program of expansion that the terrorist is unable to stop. He's too busy fighting for his own survival. And now, the full majesty and dignity of the law is convened, in the person of the Malayan High Court of Justice, to examine the case of Ah Hong. As Ah Hong's trial commences, the court calls for 2 assessors, who sit with the judge and assist him in arriving at a verdict after listening to all the evidence for and against the prisoner.
Evidence has been led that this is the firearm in question. Evidence has also been led that this very weapon was in the possession of the accused. That, my lord, is the case for the prosecution.
As his lordship will tell you, it is not for the accused to prove his innocence. It is for the prosecution to prove, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the accused was in possession of that firearm. That, I submit, the prosecution has failed to do. And I therefore ask you to give as your opinion that the accused is not guilty.
If, after hearing all the evidence, you are satisfied that he did not commit an offence in carrying a firearm, then it is your duty to say he is not guilty. I will now ask for your opinions.
Guilty, Your Lordship.
Guilty, Your Lordship.
I agree with the opinions of the assessors, and the accused is convicted as charged. Do you wish to say anything before I pass the sentence of death?
Let there be perfect silence in this court while his lordship judge pronounces sentence of death on the prisoner in the dock.
The sentence of the court upon you is that you will be taken from this place to a lawful prison, and at a time and date to be fixed, there suffer death by hanging.
而家咧，法庭上宣判你係不要帶到去一個合法嘅監獄嗰處，定一個時期要你上吊，吊到死。
It It's my duty to inform you that if you wish, you may appeal to the Court of Appeal against the conviction and sentence.
但係咧，而家咧嚇，你係唔得面咧，你可以上訴嘅，有權可以上訴，你可以上訴喎。我唔需要上訴。好啦 I shall not appeal.
Remove the prisoner.
The measure of Britain's post-war success in this rich land, populated by peace-loving people, is that she has confined the enemy to the jungle, where they can do little harm except to themselves. When they do break cover, to murder and pillage, Malaya is ready for them. That is why I was able to leave Malaya, my reporting done, safe in the knowledge that here is a country hard at work, providing the people with the amenities that will enable them to live peaceful, useful lives, and to bring up their children to do the same, despite the enemy at the doorstep. Now the problem is to drive the terrorists out of the country altogether, and enable this land to enjoy without interruption the peace and contentment that is its birthright.